The next two folks that I have lined up for you are Tarek Bhija, who works in connected digital propositions in Philips HealthTech, and a great friend of mine, Richard Muller, who advised me to introduce him by saying, "Hey, I'm your buddy, and I usually surprise you." So he's my buddy, and he usually surprises me. All right. Yeah. All right. These guys will be talking about their particular way of doing project management, and that's project management 0.5. So get ready to have your cages shook a little bit, and just let these guys surprise you. Come on up.
It all started with Kees and Thomas by saying, okay, what can we best do on a conference like this in order to make sure that we are fit for future? And project leaders are a special breed. Yes, I am a project leader for 22 years already in my life. For the ones who say that's rather awkward when you have a PhD and 22 years, I'm 51 years of age. So project management keeps you young, apparently. But before I continue, Tarek is my buddy. This is already the last slide, apparently, so we go fast. We actually changed the title a little bit because we like, of course, to challenge. And I think Project Management 0.5 is here for a particular reason. We came to the conclusion we can try to implement everything rock solid in our approach. And yes, I am a PMP certified, as well as Tarek is. But we came to the conclusion, are we not overcomplicating our process to a maximum extent? And then with Kees and Thomas, we were actually challenging to the max, how can we make sure that in project management, you also allow still for changes? And what is the basis? Is the basis project management 2.0, or is actually the new approach for project management 0.5? And that's where actually our journey started by saying we're here at Philips, from Philips, and although I have to say in Philips we are excellent in creating the best processes in the world, we are also very well aware that in project management you have to make sure that you still think from a bigger perspective, and you have to make sure what are we here for in order to make sure that we bring the best propositions and product to market. So today, Tarek and myself are going to make an interactive session. Not as interactive as Chris, because Chris got me startled when he said Kodak and razors go hand in hand. And I thought, oh my God, I'm working at razors, so what's happening here? But to the point of Chris, yes, you're right. If Philips would not have been on a journey or a transformation over the last decades, we would not be standing here. We would still, at best, be selling razors in the far end of the life cycle. But the good news is we are standing here as proud project leaders for not selling razors, but actually trying to make sure that people have a healthy skin. And that is also the journey of the transition from Philips, from 125 years ago where we talked light bulbs, everything to screw in. Philips right now is talking about health solutions. So Philips is on a transition of making sure that everything in the life cycle of human beings is actually being touched upon. And that's also the slogan of Philips. We are touching 3 million lives by 2025. So that's 8 years to go. But the message is, yes, we are in diagnosis, we are in treatment, we are in care, we are in healthy living, and in shaving, which is actually our core discipline. We don't talk shavers anymore, but we talk healthy skin. And that is also a complete transition compared to the previous years where we talked about shavers, which actually has a handle, which has a motor, which has a battery, which has a power plug, and very convenient right now. You can charge the shaver, so you don't need a power plug anymore, and you have something on your skin, and you do your thing, and then you're done. But that's actually not the whole story. We had to make sure that we are embracing on that entire journey of making sure that we are also changing and making sure that we talk about the relevance for the consumer. And then we as project leaders, how do we manage it? So before we get into the details, I think it's good to give you a snapshot on slide number 2, which I can handle apparently myself, is meet the team. This was a picture of 1 year ago, where Tarek and myself, you probably can find the enthusiastic guys somewhere around, where Tarek and myself had a teaser of sent to the program officer of project management, Mrs. Helen Boel. She was a Kiwi, and of course we said, let's surprise her by doing a haka. But this team was just about shavers, and then it's called male grooming formally. But you could already see the energy of the team is there. The mindset of the team is there. 143 years of experience of these guys. And what we had to do is make sure that we embrace all the challenges we had on our way in bringing the next area of shaving. As said, Tarek, he is very well educated in everything which goes digital, which is very helpful from the Philips journey, and that's also what we're going to explain in a short while for now. And myself, I do have a PhD background in aerospace engineering, and sometimes people ask me the question, what are you doing here then? As I'm trying to make razors fly. But that apparently is not yet a consumer need, so I'm trying to work that one. But the long story short is I'm very privileged that I have seen project management from deep down in just aerospace industry all the way up to companies like Procter & Gamble, and since 10 years now in Philips. Right now, very interesting, and that's also what you will see back in the presentation. I started my role as a product research manager, which actually is also one of these terms you will not find back in normal industry, but Philips has it. But it's all about the consumer. And as project manager, I used to be quite strict in, that's my way to the goal, and you will not stop me. And yes, I'm doing exercising and do body pump and I do fitness, and everyone who's coming my way, I just say thank you very much and I'll put you aside. And that is what we're doing right now quite differently, because we embrace change. And that is the prerequisite for these bunch of guys in order to make sure that we meet the finish line. So the mindset has not changed. We want to make sure that we bring the best products in market. But what has changed is the mental model. These guys are all PMP certified. So we did that in 2015. We started on that, when I read the book of Kirchner, I didn't understand what he was writing about. And then I did the book of Rita, you probably know that one, which is the excerpt or the easy version, which took me actually a long time to go through it. It's all correct. There's nothing wrong with Rita, there's nothing wrong with Kirchner, there's nothing wrong with PMBOK, but there is more to it. And that is what we actually are going to show here. So Chris already told about Agile. We're even making a next leap. And be surprised that in Philips we embrace new ways of working in order to make sure that we are in the health solutions area being successful. Any questions so far? Go on. Please, sir.
Why do people have beards?
That's a very good question. Let me think on that one now. The most important thing is I even shave with blades just because of understanding the consumer, that's what they're doing. And these gentlemen are most in the test, so that's a 7-day beard, so we do 7-day beard shaving. And at that moment in time, they were all subjects to testing.
Nice. Good one. Good one.
Yeah, you might say, why do these guys have beards? But I think you all know the slogan of Philips. It's not about only innovation in you, but it's about your own personal style. And that is what Philips tries to radiate in personal care. It's about you and every kind of style you want to have. Just express yourself every day. That is what they radiate. And I like that. It's about a concept of how can you feel people comfortable in their skin. So, this is the most busiest slide with text, but it's just to jump into what is the starting point for actually trying to see if there's anything else for us, helping us in the journey on making sure that we get into development of challenging propositions which just ask more than the hardware and our waterfall approach. Philips is into personalized proposition, and which actually means I want to bring something specifically for you which helps you and is not just an eenheidsworst, as I say it in Dutch, unity sausage, if I try to, to explain it in English. But yeah, sometimes I have a twerk in my mind, but never mind, it goes away. But the message is we are into personalized proposition solutions. That means where we started 75 years ago on our journey of shavers with Mr. Anton Horowitz, who says, there is a motor, there is a cord, and there's one shaving cap, and you put it to your face, and we solve your beard. But that could not actually be the entire need for that specific consumer, because nowadays we have the millennials who say, I have a pimple, or I have a dent, or I have somewhere a wrinkle in my face, I need to have something special for me. I have long hairs, I have fluffy hairs, I would like to have something which is dedicated for me. And that is something which is quite different. So the unity sausage is gone, and we have to make sure that we actually are learning from the consumers out there what we need to do. And from project management perspective, that means actually if you start somewhere on a journey, you think, I know my consumer, and I just make the race 1.5 years from now fully launched in market, you might come to the conclusion that it's not working that way. Because we are changing so rapidly over time, and you might say, shavers changing rapidly? Yes, because yesterday shavers, tomorrow it's healthy skin, and the day after tomorrow we talk about skin treatments, skin curing actually, all the way from starting with 500 engineers in Drachten and in Amsterdam and talking about healthy skin. That is the way how we try to unlock, and at least also Philips tries to unlock, everything we learn from skin in making sure that we also manage it into valuable propositions in the market. The project leaders, nowadays we have about 3,000 project leaders within Philips. And you could say at 110,000 employees that's not much, but all these kind of project leaders are facing the same thing. Whether you're in MRI, whether you're in HealthTech, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in healthy living, Philips nowadays also still has coffee. So everything around it is making sure that you get it into your relevant propositions. So key for us is, yes, continuous learning. That's also what you do with Agile, but very important, how can we make sure that you learn, learn, learn? And for that, the magic term is connected propositions. If you talk about these connected propositions, you see that we're trying to understand what the consumer needs. And we somehow have to make sure that when you think I have that starting point as a project, which we call the value proposition worksheet in Philips, and you start with that value proposition worksheet and you make it into an ideal product model, and you make it into a frozen concept, and from that you make it into a starting condition for doing mass production, and you do your verification and validation, you might come to the conclusion you're actually not serving him, in this case, to a maximum extent. And by connected propositions, we actually cannot only understand the consumer after he's having the product, but we can already understand the consumer when he's having that product. So this is the project actually of Tarek. And you see already in blue the very important acronyms which turn up, which also Chris was using, pivot or turn, or pivot or persevere. And actually with those connected propositions, and that is the bridge I want you to keep in mind, we come to the conclusion that we are learning during actually project execution. And you might say, that is something you have done wrong at the beginning, but we're going so fast with the speed of lighting that we try to understand these new consumer and target groups and the relevant universe, because that's actually what happened, is that you might come to the conclusion you have to pivot or persevere. My biggest challenge as PMO, Project Management Officer in Philips, was actually managing the amount of RTCs, request to change, which was coming our way during project management. And I cannot lie, but the good news is the door is closed. At least 10% of my budget were RTCs. And yes, I'm talking a number of 5 with 4 zeros and then in millions. That kind of money is being spent in Philips on personal care and only in the area of shaving. But what we are doing continuously is learning, and we come to the conclusion that if you want to make sure that in the end the proposition is right, we have to pivot and turn in our projects. And waterfall was not the most successful approach for us for that. This is a famous quote from Mike Tyson. Apparently it was one before he had too many punches in the face, because it was still very catchy when he said it at that moment in time. Everyone has a plan until he gets punched in the face. And that is also what we felt in trying to manage these kind of complicated, connected propositions at that moment in time. And we said it has its limitations. So if we want to do something different than we have done before, and for us it was from just a shaver, from a shaver with software, from a shaver with software and an app, and a shaver and software and app being connected and learning from the consumers and trying to improve on that proposition, we came to the conclusion that waterfall approach was not working for us. A lot of bullets, and I don't know whether you can read them from the back, so I will just give you a couple of snappy ones. Our market is unpredictable. That could, of course, be an excuse by saying I have to stop doing business, but I think it's very more valuable is that you could be in a potential market where you could have an opportunity, but we do not know exactly how the market is changing over time. Unplanned budget increase due to change request is inevitable. I just talked to you about 10% of my budget was on RTCs, making sure that we change during the project life cycle into the new propositions. But all that kind of stuff was happening during our execution of waterfall processes. Scope change after frozen design is complex to handle. In Philips, we talk about mass production. Certain type of shavers can be produced 20 million times. Better make sure that once you start producing that shaver, you're not going to have any kind of modifications to your tooling equipment, your processes, etc., because you're in big doo-doo. It's very, very expensive and time-consumer if you have scope changes to your product once it's frozen. So all these things were not helping us to the maximum extent. We're doing okay on time, sir? So we said, what is out there? Philips would not have been Philips if we have not said we have a solution for the waterfall approach. We have teams who are really into these kind of improvements. We call them process improvement teams, and they helped us in trying to develop all kinds of stepstones, interfaces. We talked about V models, everything to make sure that we got into that waterfall funnel and we manage everything which goes around it. Very helpful, but we could still say not efficient to the maximum extent. So this is the journey we took as a team in the last 4 years actually, in trying to see how can we make sure that we manage everything which is coming new to us, whether it is a connected proposition, whether it's a proposition with an app or trying to learn in market, what have we done? And then the first one is fully recognized. That's the hardware approach, and you just go read from left to right and you come with a product. Where we also came to the conclusion it will not always be right when you see that your market need is changing and your consumers are actually having a different need or business need. So hardware, PMBOK works if you know what you're doing and it's fully secured. Software, great what Chris mentioned, and yes, we embrace it as well, so we do the safe approach. We had the Scrum Masters, we have everything in place, but it only works for us in the software domain. What we tried to do within Philips was line number 3, where we said, okay, but now we have these digital connected platforms where I do have an appliance with a cord, where I do have something which is called software in the shaver. Shaver is extremely complex nowadays. It has the same kind of software as a motor engine. And of course, we do have the app in order to make sure that we can do the communication. We called it a hybrid model. Chris said it was agile, but we call it hybrid. That model also works, but what we actually still came to the conclusion, it is a mix of best and both worlds, but it still has the restriction of how to handle changes, how to be able to do pivot and turns and make sure that you without loss of efficiency, still could bring and tune the proposition to the desired extent. And that's what we call minimum viable product. So you could say, oh, there is more than waterfall and agile and lean development and DFSS. Yes, we call it minimum viable product. The millennials immediately came with a nice translation to that acronym, MVP. They said, Richard, does that allow me to actually do maximum violation of processes? I said, no, that's not it. MVP is not maximum violation of processes. Actually, MVP is all about making sure that it's not about project management of a series of knowns. It is actually facing a series of unknowns. And as project leader, that might be a challenge. I think the best sessions we had as a project management community, at that moment we had a team of approximately 30 people, project leaders. We said, we are the ones who are actually embracing the risks, and we do proper risk management in order to solve the risks. If we are risk avoiders, then we all get fired because that's what we should not do. And now we're actually coming with an approach, MVP, which is managing a series of unknowns. So that was a big question, and also as a team we said, okay, thank you very much, but it means that I get 20 million RTCs, change requests, during my project, and I have to pivot and turn continuously. And then we said, no, that's not what it's all about. What we are doing, we are managing actually what the outcome should be, not what the output should be. So we don't manage deliverables, we manage the outcome. And I think that is the most important message from this slide. We are facing a series of unknowns. So I deliberately did not use the color red in slides because that makes people nervous as well as myself. So we tried to do a mixture of yellowish and green. And what we said actually, if you would like to classify traditional waterfall for the propositions and the state of mind and the journey we are in right now, you could say waterfall scope first, so we define actually what we're going to build, and then the quality comes over time, and that is actually for me the classical principle of waterfall. That is, on the consumer value, you could be spot on, but you also might run the risk that you have to change and pivot and turn, and you have these kind of laborious and cumbersome processes of change request. So on the efficiency and speed, you could argue whether it would work for these kind of new to the world propositions. Agile, super cool for us, but mostly in the domain of software. That's where we also anchor it. And agile for us is we at least go for a building blocks where we could say this kind of quality we could reach. And then you make sure that it's going to work, and then you deliver the feature, but you have a quality in mindset. And we call it also the weighted shortest job first. So there is also a restriction on agile, as we found out, with the consumer value, which actually is being in the yellow. The hybrid is nothing else as the wedgile method, where we say we try to mix waterfall and agile, where we also still had the problem of you do the features first, but you are not incrementally building your proposition. And then we said we have to right away develop a proposition which is first time right. We don't want to change the proposition. We want to be first time right. And for that reason, MVP, we said the consumer is first. It's a consumer-centric approach. You start from the holistic approach of the consumer, and then you're actually drilling it down to a very simple set of steps in order to make it. Tarek, would you be so kind, sir, as to elaborate on how you did it in your project?
Yeah, sure thing. Well, I think you all know the millennial that he was referring to is me, so that's what he got to live with for a couple of years. Basically, I'm just going to try to walk you through the MVP approach. I think you all are familiar with it. You probably have been using it in your projects, for some of you. But basically, it is about three main steps: creating your value proposition, executing, and managing the execution. It is all about the consumer in mind, so not outputs, but outcomes. And it is about first creating your vision or idea, then you see if with that idea actually is there a problem solution fit? Am I solving something, or am I just working for the sake of working? Then you try to ideate. You come up with already with some prototypes and so on, and then you see whether via testing, continuous testing, whether what you have brought, does that actually bring value to the consumer, yes or no? Based on that, you iterate that loop until you get to a certain maturity. At that point, you are good enough, you're MVP. And afterwards, you're actually just able to scale up, so building a commercial proposition. You will see a slight difference between the first value proposition creation step and the execution, in a simple way that when you're creating a value proposition and you're testing it with your consumers, they're probably, the idea is interesting. Am I going to put money for that? Probably no. That's actually the verge where you move to the commercial or the scale phase. And afterwards, the managing phase, some people call it the easy phase, because what you do is that you just keep on improving your existing proposition, but sometimes it's actually the most difficult, especially from an organizational perspective, because that's where usually you lose focus. You say, I'm good, my business is doing all right, it should be fine. That's actually where you have your own mistake, because you should really keep on continuous improvement. And you will see actually that there are a lot of commonalities with Waterfall, with Agile, MVP, and I think Richard already mentioned it, but also Chris. It's not about what is right and what is wrong. It's just about choosing for yourself, depending on your situation, what would work for you, and trying to build your own model in the end. It has been a roller coaster actually for us, and so is the graph below. But basically what you do is that when you create your value proposition, at least the recommendation that I would always give is to keep your consumer involved since the beginning. Yes, you will ideate, yes, you will come up with great solutions already, but please make sure that the consumer is part of that, because they can really be of a great help for you into at least framing the challenge for you and already building a certain solution direction for you. And based on that, what you will do, you will start testing a concept. And I fully understand that in the industry it's a little bit difficult to build, let's say, prototypes so early in the project, but I'll come to that. It doesn't have to be a prototype, especially at that phase when you're still building a concept. Testing a concept is also fine. Then, once you have done that, you will go into what we call build, measure, learn loops. And these are nothing else than continuous improvement. So you will keep improving and maturing your proposition over and over again. Every time you have an iteration, you test it with relevant consumers, with your target group, and you improve it. And that mindset is very key for this, at least for this way of working. Afterwards, when you're good enough, when you're commercially ready, you can scale it up and manage it, as I mentioned earlier. At least the philosophy that we should embrace, because it's not only about, it's another way of working, it's a new way of working, but it's also about a mindset shift. It's also about a mental model, as Richard mentioned, and it is about creating that mindset that will allow you over time to be business agile and also be able to come up with quick ideas and test them very quickly. That's for me very key. Of course, once you will have your proposition ready, you would like to test it. And if you want to test it, you need to build strong experiments. But also, before that, you will need to list your riskiest hypothesis, especially at the beginning when you're building a product. Let's say you're building a car. What would be your riskiest hypothesis? Do actually people need a car? And it might be as simple as this, but get the basics right first, and the riskiest hypothesis being validated first at a very early stage, because this will allow you to further on go into that loop over and over again and actually improving your proposition. Another key moment for me at least was that, especially when you have the chance to observe consumers, also customers for some, actually going through your experience, that's for me the key moment where you get valuable learnings about what they actually do, how do they actually use your product, What do they think? What do they feel? And there are, of course, some tools to capture that, which I'll get to in a bit. And of course, trigger in the continuous learning loop and do it again. So build, measure, learn, do it again. We're all project managers here. We love to have tools. We love to have toolbox. So these are just some tools that you could use, and that I would recommend actually, especially for some phases that are quite fuzzy. When you are starting at the beginning, you don't actually know what you're trying to solve. Try to have your co-creation, as I already mentioned. The business model canvas you're all familiar with, but this is for me the greatest tool, at least that I have used, in order to capture my whole proposition. So at the very beginning, at the very early stage, I wanted to know what is my source of business, who is my customer or my consumer, how am I going actually to channelize my products, and so on and so forth. Your hypothesis backlog, as I mentioned already, very important. Just try to list all the hypotheses that you have. And I think it's a very painful exercise at the beginning because you have just so many unknowns, if only they were knowns. You have so many unknowns at that time that you would like just to list them and try to validate one at a time. The riskiest first and go through that list. It will also allow you to actually increase or add new hypotheses that come along the way. The empathy map, the experience flow, as I mentioned also, that allows you just to see or to try to imagine what is the current routine for our consumers or customers, what do they actually do, think, feel, and based on that you can already identify some pain points. Those pain points you can address through later on once you've worked out your prototypes or your proposition. You can actually just have a consumer confrontation, and that's just a simple interview. If you have the chance to do that, that's the most valuable thing, at least for me, that you're able to talk to consumers, that you're able to have direct interaction with them, that you can see them once they're using the product. That for me was very, very powerful tool. I talked already about verifying your proposition, also called prototyping, and I know that in the industry it's very difficult to do so, but at least I thought about a couple of examples that we could use. You can also pick and choose for yourself. You can mix and match them. You shouldn't only use one and only one. I think the explainer videos, you probably have seen tons of them. The most famous one is, at least for me, was on Dropbox, where they just explain what the concept is, how it works, and so on. And you see if it triggers consumers, yes or no. You also have all kind of concierge. You can also actually just combine and explain in video with a landing page. A landing page is nothing else than just to check if people convert into your proposition, yes or no, if there is a certain interest. And you can also go as big as a pilot, and that's what we did at least for the smart or the connected shaver series 7000, where you just go in there. It takes some guts, but you just go in there, you launch your product in a contained market, you try to get the learnings out of that, or the lessons learned, and you see if there is a business or a market need for it, yes or no. And again, build, measure, learn, improve. Then, I think what we did, so you're probably wondering, who the heck is Mark? Mark is probably yet another millennial. We've heard too many of those today, but basically Mark is actually our guy who has skin irritation. Mark is actually the answer to your question, sir. Mark cannot shave because he has skin irritation, and that's why he's keeping a beard to hide it. You're probably wondering if I'm doing the same. I'll keep the... Exactly. Yes, let's leave the mystery there. Yeah, indeed. Yes. So it could be Tarek, but in this case it's Mark. So Mark has skin irritation and cannot shave every day because basically he has skin irritation, and we tried to actually solve that by bringing to them a connected product. It's not a connected product for the sake of just being cool and having another connected product. It's actually because we truly believe that connectivity can actually bring you so much more information. It can help you actually understanding your consumer, but also can allow you into providing the consumer with the valuable solutions that they're looking for. In this case, personalization helped us to actually just go through, basically just trying to know more and coaching our consumers into improving their shaving routines. We did that. We recently launched the Smart 7000 series, and I wanted to share a video with you, basically just to see if actually consumers buy it or not.
Tap on the Bluetooth, and then turn on the razor, go start connecting. Razor's now connected.
I can see that's actually telling me as I go that I'm doing well. And then that's perfect. You can see that.
So it's now telling you to do smaller circles. Oh, perfect. You're doing all right.
Try some more on the circle. Just going to go through. Give me a real time reply. Before or after the initial shave. There are some really handy little info cards. Like this, that's see down there, says avoid hot water, use non-irritant cosmetics. There's always a little button that you can press to learn more and get more information about it, but there's also some quick, just really easy to read little tips.
So for me, using electric shave previously, I find I don't necessarily get quite a close shave. With learners, it's really so pleasant and giving you advice, feedback through from the app. Just being advised to do smaller circles whilst I was shaving, I found made a real difference in the actual closeness of the shave coming through.
As we say, proof is in the pudding. Yeah, this is for me the best proof, at least what makes me really proud about what I've worked on, because that actually just shows that in the end we managed to bring a meaningful product to the consumers. And what is the best way to showcase that than just through consumers that are actually genuinely happy about what you're bringing? But we actually wanted to go a little bit further and wanted to see, okay, it is cool when you unpack your product, you always have that excitement, you're always very happy about it, especially the first day, but you always see that the engagement goes down. So what we did actually is that we also asked them a couple of weeks later how they're doing and if they still believe in the proposition. And this is what we got.
My main issue is kind of dry, creative skin and shaving, which I added to my app and then created a personal plan.
My redness, my irritation, my dry skin have all been improving massively in the last 3 weeks. I've been really surprised at how well the Smart Shaving program has helped me to reduce the issues that I've always had from shaving.
I had really bad redness, got really dry skin, usually around the sideburns area. And this shaver has really helped with that. Is it me through? Looking pretty good.
I haven't been able to recommend it enough to friends and family. My brother, colleagues in work, they've all noticed the difference in my skin. A lot of people are interested, so I think they're excited to see this product come to market and be released and get their hands on it.
I definitely recommend it to friends. I've got a few friends that have got similar problems to me, they've been interested in it, and they actually wanted to use it. I haven't backed them because it's mine, but they've definitely been interested in the results that I've had and seen and improvement in my skin.
Yeah, so quite powerful indeed. I think at the end of the day, it's really about bringing meaningful innovation and improving people's lives. I think Richard already mentioned it. 3 billion people around the world by 2020. I think it's quite a strong challenge, but I think with this, there is something to be proud with. As I mentioned in the beginning, it's not only about just changing or using MVP and forgetting all the rest. No, it's about picking for yourself what is the best solution for you and what tool actually suits your situation. And I think for at least, if I may talk for Philips, and when we developed this connected proposition, I think going for MVP was the smart choice that we did. And in the end, it's also about, I'll leave you with this, your desire to change must be higher than your desire to stay the same. I think we as Philips are called project leaders, but most importantly, integral project leaders, because we're managing the whole end-to-end value chain. But I think we shouldn't be IPLs, integral project leaders, we should be IPLs. ideal proposition leaders. My name is Tarek. Bhija. Thank you for having me today.
Well, they booked the time for you, but we have 5 minutes left for questions, so do you have something to fire off? Yes.
I liked how you talked about pivot or persevere, because I think it's a better motto to go by. And beyond, of course, customer feedback, as project managers, what are you using? The metrics, gut feel, team feedback to decide to either pivot or preserve in terms of how you're running the project?
I think, yeah, thanks. At least what we did for this project was to make sure that we have our riskiest hypothesis listed first, but also throughout the consumer observation. So we have regular or central tests where we have our consumers testing our products, and there is actually where we get the feedback. It's probably not the right time to leave, so please hang there. Basically, we just test our consumers with our consumers, and we also have the benefit of having a connected proposition is to have analytics, and with analytics you can do a lot more than what you could imagine. You can just see their behavior, where do they spend most time on, what feature is actually being used, what is not, and how often. And that's actually quite powerful, because usually what we did actually before was we just, there you go, here is your shaver, good luck with it, and we have no clue if they're using it in the right way or not, for how long, or any as such. I think with analytics we achieved quite a lot, and that was for me a major learning, is that we can now know exactly which feature or even how much time is it green screen or blue or whatever, and that's quite powerful on top of the questionnaires that we have with, or the face-to-face discussions that we have with consumers. Does that answer your question? Yes.
Okay, yeah, you got a question back here.
This is maybe not so much about project management. What I find most intriguing about this is on one side you go to this very much digitalized, intelligent version. Your main competitor is as dumb as hell. What is your challenge? Because if you use this thing under the shower, you know, no intelligence, no battery, no electronics, no computers, no. Where does that go?
There's a famous quote of the founder of P&G, who said, if we cannot make our shavers, our razors become better, we stop business. And that is actually what you see, what happens with the blade. And of course, I'm not here to criticize on blade, but the blade concept is about trying to be as clean as possible. And what Philips is trying to do right now is going into skin. And skin is a different platform or a mental model, because we're not trying to get rid of the hairs, we're trying to make sure that we are on the interface of hairs and skin, and we're trying to improve the skin condition of actually the people who are using it. And blade or a shaver might be, for the majority of the people, might be totally okay, but what we are trying to do right now is for the target groups who still have problems on their skins, not trying to shave for any kind of reasons, for dryness, redness, irritation or comfort, Philips is trying to find out, can we make sure that we do some kind of technology, in this case the connected proposition, where we learn in market, where we learn from consumers, trying to make sure that we help them with their problem. Hopefully that answers your question.
Final question.
How big is the target group?
How big is the target group?
What we actually say, the target group is the relevant universe, and we have all different kinds of types. We have, we call them the disaffected groomer, we have the clean-cut traditionalist, we have the alpha males, we have lots of different target groups. However, if you come to the conclusion that within every target group you do have people who still have some kind of skin condition because they would like to shave every day, but they do have this kind of skin condition, in every target group, there is still people who have these kind of skin conditions, which we try to prevent from occurring.
And how big is that?
That's 50% of people.
50%.
Yeah.
Yes, if you're talking about people... That's a good one. I haven't had that before. But if you're talking about people, let's say between the age of 25 and 65, you see approximately half of them have a certain kind of skin irritation. Yes, you're then part of the lucky ones.
All right. I'm sure there's some more questions and challenges that'll be popping up. We have a break.